submission to live stream at guruexamprep.com. It's a series 24. And he said, Dean, can you and Brian comment on supervision of social media? I think this discussion would be appropriate for both the 10 and the 24. The first thing is that we have to have in our WSPs, our written supervisory procedures, what are our firm's policies and procedures as it relates to social media. Remember, we ask every new hire to read the WSPs of the firm. It has, social media, insider trading, all those kind of things. So first, a thing you should be aware of is sales supervisors are not principals. And so when we say that if we're going to allow reps to use a social media site, the first thing is that it has to be approved by a Series 24. And that 24 has looked at that social media site and has determined that associated person can and will comply with applicable rules. Surprising, Brian. I've seen a lot of firms that will allow LinkedIn, fewer firms that allow Facebook, and I don't have any firm that allows participation in Reddit, maybe because it's anonymous or whatever it is. The second testable point for a 24 is the distinction between static content and interactive content. So static content is typically posted long-term. I think LinkedIn profile, for example. And so if you're going to go up on LinkedIn as an associated person of the firm, I had somebody work for me, Brian. I found them on LinkedIn and I didn't know they were there. That's bad form. And they were using their personal phone number for the contact information instead of the firm. Now, she took exception when I called her out on it. And I said, well, listen, then don't put yourself on LinkedIn as an associated person of my firm. Make yourself an independent contractor or something. So that's static content. And the test question is that has to be approved by a principal prior to use. Interactive content, I think of as more real time, contemporaneous, right? So, you're interacting. And so it's impossible for a principal to approve the kind of interaction that's taking place in interactive content. And so the testable distinction, this does not require prior principal approval, but it does require supervision. And so you would supervise interactive content in the same way that you supervise correspondence or institutional communication. So if you're going to allow your reps as a principal to use interactive communications prior to principal approval, which most firms are going to do, again, that has to be provided for in your WSPs. And then you would have to train your reps accordingly, right? How are your reps going to, do that, and how you're going to surveil for compliance. In social media supervision, you should be aware of third parties, third-party post and entanglement with third-party content is part of social media supervision. Firms can't link to a third-party site that they know to have or reason to know that is false and misleading. Again, that just, I think, is common sense. And then you can become entangled if you're actually using that information or helping in presenting or coming up with that information. What that's basically FINRA saying is you're going to be held accountable for that content. And then in terms of suitability, are you going to allow reps to make a recommendation in social media? Probably not, right? The only time you would allow a rep to make a recommendation in interactive content in social media is if you've approved it previously or you're using a content or template that can be used in social media to make those recommendations. All right, the other thing that came in early, another Series 24.